Captain Lee Jinwoo stood at the main window of Earth's largest orbital defense station, watching the stars twinkle in the distance. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. The reports coming in were getting worse by the hour. "Captain, heard another message from the outer colonies," said Lieutenant Park So-min, her voice tight with worry. She walked over from the communications console, holding a data pad that seemed to shake in her hands. Jinwoo took the pad and read the words that made his stomach drop. 3 more star systems had gone dark. The Devourers had eaten everything. Planets, moons, space stations, even the stars themselves seemed dimmer afterward. What scared him most was how fast they moved. Last week, the Kepler colonies were sending normal reports about mining operations and trade routes. Today there was nothing but empty space where millions of people used to live. "How many species have started running?" Jinwoo asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. "All of them, sir," So-min replied quietly. "The Zephyrians were first. They did that thing where they slip into other dimensions. Happened so fast our sensors barely caught it. 1 second their entire civilization was there, the next second it was like they never existed." Jinwoo nodded slowly. The Zephyrians were smart. They had been around for thousands of years and had survived every major threat by simply stepping sideways into reality. If they were scared enough to abandon their home dimension, things were really bad. "What about the others?" he asked, dreading the answer. So-min scrolled through her reports. "The Crystalline Collective broke apart yesterday. Literally. They turned themselves into tiny pieces smaller than sand and scattered across the galaxy. The Vorthak just vanished completely. Our scientists think they might have traveled backward in time to hide in the past. Every species had their own way of running away when things got dangerous. The galaxy had learned these survival tricks over millions of years. When something too big and scary showed up, you didn't fight it. You hid until it went away or found someone else to bother. The communication system suddenly came alive with an urgent message. It was from the Galactic Council, the group that helped coordinate between all the different alien species. Jinwoo activated the main screen, and the familiar face of Councillor Thex appeared. The alien's usually calm purple skin had turned a worried shade of grey. "Captain Jinwoo, we are offering immediate evacuation assistance to all human settlements," Thex said, his translator making his voice sound robotic. "We have prepared transport ships that can carry your entire population to the safe zones near the galactic center. The Devourers cannot reach you there." So-min looked at Jinwoo hopefully. "Sir, maybe we should consider it. The Council has never been wrong about these big threats before." Jinwoo stared at the tactical display that showed the current position of every human colony, station, and ship. Tiny blue dots scattered across space, representing billions of people who were looking to Earth for guidance. Some dots were already moving, he noticed. Colony ships and exploration vessels were heading home instead of running away. "Lieutenant, what's the status of our military forces?" Jinwoo asked. "Admiral Kim Do-hyun reports that 70% of our fleets are returning to Sol system. The remaining 30% are taking defensive positions along the most likely approach routes." So-min paused, then added, "Sir, they're not running either." Jinwoo felt something strange in his chest. It wasn't fear exactly, though he was definitely scared. It was something else. Something that made him think about his grandfather, who used to tell stories about the old wars on Earth. His grandfather always said that some things were worth fighting for, even when you knew you might lose. He looked at Councillor Thex on the screen. The alien was waiting patiently for an answer, probably expecting humans to accept the evacuation offer like every other species had. "Councillor Thex," Jinwoo said in a clear, steady voice, "please thank the Council for their generous offer. But humanity will not be evacuating." The alien's grey skin turned an even more worried shade. "Captain, I do not think you understand the nature of this threat. The Devourers have never been defeated. Every species that has tried to fight them has been completely destroyed." "Then we'll be the first," Jinwoo replied simply. So-min was staring at him with wide eyes. Through the communication system, he could hear other conversations stopping as people listened to what he was saying. "Send a message to all human settlements," Jinwoo continued. "Tell them that Earth is not running. Tell them that if they want to fight, we'll fight together. And if they want to run, that's okay too, but Earth stays." The silence that followed seemed to last forever. Jinwoo could hear his own heartbeat and the quiet hum of the station's life support systems. Then slowly, responses started coming in from across human space. Admiral Kim Do-hyun's voice was the first and loudest. "All human fleets, you heard the captain. We're not going anywhere. Seoul's pride is ready for whatever comes next." Dr. Yoon. Hairi had been working for 18 hours straight, her eyes burning from staring at the translation screens. Coffee cups littered her desk, and she had given up trying to keep track of time. What she was hearing through the alien communication channels was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. "Commander Choi, you need to hear this," she called, out, adjusting her headset as another stream of panicked alien chatter filled her ears. Commander Choi Min-ho walked over from the tactical planning table where he had been studying ship movements. His uniform was wrinkled, and his face showed the strain of the past few days. "What are they saying now?" Hairi pulled up the translation logs on her main screen. "The Zephyrian Council is having emergency meetings in their alternate dimension. They're trying to figure out why humans aren't following basic survival instincts. Listen to this." She played back a translated conversation. The mechanical voice of the translator spoke. "The human species exhibits behavior patterns inconsistent with intelligent life forms. No rational species would choose certain death over proven survival strategies." "They really think we've lost our minds," Hairi said, scrolling through more messages. "The Crystalline Collective sent a detailed analysis to the Galactic Medical Board. They're calling our behavior evolutionary suicide syndrome, a mental condition that makes entire species choose death over survival." Minho laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Evolutionary suicide syndrome, that's what they think this is." Through the research station's main window, they could see the steady stream of human ships arriving in the Sol system. These weren't military vessels built for war. They were colony ships, mining vessels, exploration craft, and trade freighters. But each one had been modified during their journey home. Solar panel arrays had been turned into makeshift armor. Mining lasers had been converted into weapons. Cargo holds had been filled with whatever materials could be turned into ammunition. "Look, at the new Incheon," Minho pointed to a large colony ship passing by the station. "They've mounted their entire hydroponic system on the outside hull. Captain Park Jae-sung says they're going to use it as a kinetic weapon if they get close." "Enough to the enemy." Hairi shook her head in amazement. 3 weeks ago, that ship was carrying families to establish a new farming colony. Now it's a battleship. The communication system activated, and the voice of Captain Han Sung-jae filled the room. His mining vessel, the Busan Runner, was one of the furthest human ships from Earth. It had been working in the asteroid fields near the edge of human space when the evacuation orders came through. "Research Station Alpha, this is Busan Runner. We've decided not to come home." Minho quickly activated the response channel. "Captain Han, explain your position." "Commander, we're only 3 days away from where the Devourers hit the Vega colonies. We're going to get there first and see what's left. Maybe we can learn something useful before they move on to the next system." Hairi felt her stomach drop. "Captain, that's suicide. You have a crew of 46 people. Mining ships aren't built for combat." Han's voice came back steady and calm. "Dr. Yoon, my crew voted. Unanimous decision. We're not soldiers, but we're engineers and miners. We know how to take things apart and put them back together. Maybe that's what we need right now." Through the speakers, they could hear the background noise of the Busan Runner's bridge. People were working, shouting instructions, and moving equipment. It sounded busy and determined, not like people going to their deaths. "We've been studying the attack patterns," Han continued. "The Devourers always leave something behind. Debris, energy signatures, maybe even damaged pieces of their ships. No one's ever tried to analyze that stuff because every species runs away too fast. But we're not running." Minho looked at the tactical display showing the Busan Runner's position. The little blue dot was moving steadily toward an area of space where 3 star systems used to exist. "Captain, what do you need from us? Just promise that if we find something useful, you'll use it. We're rigging our communication array to broadcast continuously. If we discover a weakness, every human ship will know about it within hours." Hairi pulled up the psychological profiles that alien scientists had been broadcasting about humans. The reports were fascinating and disturbing at the same time. Species that had survived for millions of years were genuinely confused by human behavior. "Commander." They're studying us like we're a new form of mental illness, she said, highlighting several scientific papers. The Vorthak sent a research team back from whatever time period they're hiding in. They want to observe our mass psychosis for their historical records. What do our own psychologists say? Minho asked. Hyrie smiled, for the first time in days. Dr. Kim Tae-woo from the Earth Psychology Institute published a response yesterday. He said that from a human perspective, running away from something that's going to chase you anyway is the real mental illness. The communication channel crackled again, and Han's voice returned. This is Busan Runner with our final transmission, before we reach the Vega system. To everyone listening, we're going to find their weakness even if it kills us, and if we don't make it back, remember that we chose this. No one forced us. We're doing this because someone has to, and we're the only ones crazy enough to try. Minho saluted the communication console even though Han couldn't see him. Around the research station, other staff members had stopped working to listen. The aliens think we're insane, Minho said quietly. Maybe they're right. But I'd rather be insane than extinct. Captain Oh Ji-eun had been awake for 36 hours straight when the sensors first detected them. The Devourers appeared at the edge of the Kepler 442b system like a nightmare made real. Through the main view screen of her destroyer, Incheon's Fury, she watched massive shapes that defied easy description emerge from hyperspace. Captain, I'm reading 57 large contacts, reported Ensign Park Dong-min from the sensor station. His voice cracked slightly as he spoke. They're huge. The smallest one is 3 times the size of a colony ship. Ji-eun studied the tactical display, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. The Devourers didn't look like any ships she had ever encountered. They seemed to be part machine and part living creature, with surfaces that rippled and changed as she watched. Some had what looked like mouths lined with metal teeth. Others had long tentacle-like appendages that moved with disturbing intelligence. All ships, this is Captain O, she broadcast to the small fleet under her command. 12 destroyers, 8 frigates and 3 converted mining vessels, 23 ships total, to face an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations. Remember, we're not here to win, we're here to learn. Every second of data we can transmit back to Earth might save billions of lives. The battle began when the lead Devourer fired something that wasn't quite an energy beam and wasn't quite a projectile. Whatever it was tore through the shields of the destroyer, Sol's Hammer, like they weren't even there. The ship's hull simply ceased to exist where the weapon touched it. All weapons, fire at will, Ji-eun ordered, though she already suspected. It wouldn't work. The human fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, railguns, nuclear missiles, and experimental particle beams. The weapons struck the Devourer ships and did absolutely nothing. The alien vessels didn't even seem to notice they were being attacked. Captain, our weapons aren't even scratching them, reported Lieutenant Commander Kim Sun-woo from the weapons station. It's like shooting at a mountain with a water gun. Ji-eun watched 3 more of her ships disappear as the Devourers methodically moved through her fleet. These weren't normal space battles with maneuvering and tactics. The Devourers simply approached each human ship and absorbed it, the way a person might pick up an apple and take a bite. That's when she noticed something important. The Devourers were feeding. They weren't just destroying the ships, they were consuming them completely. Metal, energy, even the crew members. Everything was being absorbed into their massive forms. All ships, new orders, she announced. If they want to eat us, let's give them indigestion, ramming speed. The destroyer, Busan's Pride, was the first to respond. Captain Lee Byung-hun aimed his ship directly at the nearest Devourer and pushed his engines to maximum power. At the last second, he transmitted a message that every surviving crew member would remember. For Earth and everyone we left behind, the destroyer struck the Devourer's feeding mouth at tremendous speed. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then internal explosions rippled through the alien creature's body. It wasn't destroyed, but it was clearly hurt. For the first time since the battle began, a Devourer showed signs of damage. "They can be hurt," Ji-eun shouted over the communication channel. "Ramming attacks work. Get inside them and detonate everything you have." Lieutenant Colonel Bae Hyun-wook was commanding the converted mining ship Gwangju's Hope when he heard the order. His vessel was already badly damaged, with hull breaches on 3 decks and engines operating at only 60% power. "Captain, Ho, this is Colonel Bay," he transmitted. "My ship won't survive another hit, but our reactor is still stable. I'm going to try something." "Colonel, what's your plan?" Ji-eun asked, though she was afraid she already knew the answer. "I'm going to fly directly into that big one's feeding chamber and overload our reactor core. If I can detonate it inside their body, maybe it'll do more damage than hitting them from the outside." Ji-eun wanted to order him not to do it, but she knew they were all going to die anyway. At least this way they might learn something useful. "Understood, Colonel. Make it count." Bay maneuvered his damaged ship toward the largest devourer in the enemy formation. The alien creature seemed to sense his approach and opened what looked like a massive mouth lined with spinning metal teeth. Instead of trying to avoid it, Bay flew straight inside. The Gwangju's hope disappeared into the devourer's body. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then a brilliant flash of light erupted from inside the creature, and it began to convulse violently. Pieces of biomechanical material started breaking off and floating away. "Colony surface, this is Incheon's fury," Ji-eun transmitted to the ground forces. "Did you see that?" Sergeant Major Lim Kyung-suk was crouched behind the remains of a defense turret on the colony's main settlement. Around her, buildings burned and civilians ran for whatever shelter they could find. But she had been watching the space battle through her tactical scope. "We saw it, Captain," she replied. "The big one is hurt, really hurt. It's not moving like the others anymore." As if to prove her point, the damaged devourer suddenly crashed into the colony's outer districts. The impact shook the ground for kilometers, but the creature didn't get back up. It lay still, leaking strange fluids that glowed in the dark. Ji-eun felt a moment of wild hope. "All remaining ships," you heard the Sergeant Major. "They can be killed. Ram them if you have to, overload your reactors inside them, use your ships as kinetic weapons, whatever it takes." The battle continued for another 16 hours, but everything had changed. The humans were still losing, but now they were taking devourers with them. By the time the last human ship was destroyed, 7 of the alien creatures lay dead or dying on the colony's surface. More importantly, every second of the battle had been recorded and transmitted back to Earth. Humanity now knew that the devourers could be hurt, and more critically, they knew how to do it. As Sergeant Major Lim's final transmission reached the Sol system, her words would become the rallying cry for everything that followed. "They can be hurt. We just have to be willing to die to do it." Admiral Seo Tae-young stood in the command center, deep inside Lunar Base, watching the largest screen she had ever seen. 3 months of preparation had led to this moment. The Sol system had been turned into the most dangerous place in the galaxy, and she was about to find out if it would be enough. "Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up the Devourer fleet," reported Commander Yu Min-jae from the detection station. 234 large contacts approaching from the direction of Alpha Centauri. Tae-young nodded calmly, though her heart was racing. The Devourers had consumed 18 more star systems since the battle at Kepler 442b. But something had changed. Intelligence reports from the few survivors who escaped those attacks all said the same thing. The Devourers were being more careful now. They approached each system slowly, scanning for threats before attacking. "They've learned to be afraid of us," she said quietly. "Good. Fear makes mistakes." The command center was buzzing with activity as hundreds of technicians monitored defensive systems throughout the Sol system. What they had built over the past 3 months was unlike anything in galactic history. Every piece of space debris had been turned into a potential weapon. Every asteroid had been hollowed out and filled with nuclear explosives. Even the comets in the outer system had small fusion bombs hidden inside them. "Status report on all defensive platforms," Tae-young ordered. Lieutenant Colonel Park Sang-wook began reading from his checklist. "Mars orbital defenses are fully operational. 17 automated gun platforms and 43 missile batteries. Jupiter's moons are armed with the new kinetic bombardment systems. Saturn's rings have been seeded with over 2,000 stealth mines. But the real surprise was Earth's moon. The massive industrial complex that had been built to mine asteroids and process raw materials had been converted into the largest weapon humanity had ever created. The lunar mass driver was essentially a railgun the size of a city, capable of accelerating projectiles to incredible speeds. "What's the status of our secret weapon?" Tae-young asked Chief Engineer Kim Dal-soo. "The mass driver is charged and ready, Admiral," Kim replied with a tired smile. "We've loaded it with a tungsten projectile that weighs about as much as a small mountain. When that thing hits something, it's going to hit hard." Through the observation windows, Tae-young could see the steady stream of human ships taking their positions throughout the system. These weren't the desperate defenders of 3 months ago. Every ship had been modified with the hard-won knowledge from previous battles. Ramming spikes projected from their bows. Reactor cores had been modified for quick overload. Some ships carried nothing but explosives, piloted by volunteers who knew they wouldn't be coming home. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Captain Nam Jun-seo," announced Communications Officer Lee Sora. "Put him through," Tae-young replied. Captain Nam's voice filled the command center. He was leading the fighter squadron Soul's Vengeance, one of the most elite units in the human fleet. "Admiral, my pilots are ready. We've been practicing the new attack patterns for weeks. The Devourers won't know what hit them. Remember, Captain, your job isn't to win the fight. Your job is to get close enough to hurt them and then get out. Alive to do it again." "Understood, Admiral. We'll give them something to think about." The Devourer fleet was still hours away, but Tae-young could already see them on the long-range sensors. They were approaching in a formation that showed they had learned from their previous encounters with humans. Instead of charging straight, in like they had at other systems, they were moving carefully, scanning each planet and moon for threats. "They're not stupid," observed Major General Choi Kyung-ho, the system's ground defense coordinator. "They know we're going to try something." "Good," Tae-young replied. "Caution will slow them down and give us more time to hurt them." As the hours passed, tension filled the command center. Everyone knew that this battle would determine whether humanity survived as a species. If the Sol system fell, there would be nowhere left to run. "Admiral, they're approaching Mars orbit," reported Commander Yu. "The Mars defense platforms are requesting permission to engage." "Granted. Let's give them a welcome they'll never forget." The first exchange of fire lit up the space around Mars like a second sun. The human defenses poured everything they had into the approaching Devourer fleet: nuclear missiles, plasma cannons, kinetic projectiles, and experimental energy weapons. All struck the alien ships. To everyone's amazement, several Devourers actually took damage. The modifications and new weapon designs based on data from previous battles were working. The aliens were no longer completely invulnerable, but they were still incredibly dangerous. The Devourer return fire destroyed half the Mars defense platforms in the first 10 minutes of battle. "They're adapting to our weapons," noted Chief Tactical Officer Hong Sunmi. "The same attacks that worked at Mars aren't working as well now." "Then we'll try something they've never seen before," Tae-young said grimly. "All ships execute Plan Crazy Horse." Plan Crazy Horse was exactly as insane as it sounded. Instead of attacking the Devourers directly, human ships began ramming into each other near the enemy formation. The resulting explosions created clouds of superheated debris that damaged several alien vessels. "Admiral, the enemy is changing course," reported Commander Yu excitedly. "They're trying to avoid our debris clouds." "They're learning to be afraid," Tae-young observed. "Time to teach them real fear. Kim Dal-soo, target the lunar mass driver on their command ship." The lunar mass driver had been carefully aimed at the largest Devourer in the enemy formation. Intelligence suggested that this creature served as the fleet coordinator, directing the attacks of all the others. "Firing solution locked in," reported Chief Engineer Kim. "Mass driver is ready to fire on your command." Tae-young looked around the command center at all the people who had worked so hard to make this moment possible. Engineers, soldiers, scientists, and volunteers who had all decided that humanity would not go quietly into extinction. "Fire," she said calmly. The tungsten projectile left the lunar mass driver at a significant fraction of light speed. It crossed the distance to the Devourer command ship in seconds and struck with the force of a nuclear explosion. The massive alien creature simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the impact. Captain Nam Jun-seo's voice crackled over the communication system. "They bleed, they die, and now they're afraid." For several minutes, the remaining Devourers seemed confused without their command ship. They milled around uncertainly, no longer moving in coordinated formation. Then something unprecedented happened. The Devourer fleet began to retreat. "Admiral," whispered Commander Yu in amazement. "They're running away." For the first time in recorded galactic history, a Devourer fleet had encountered resistance so fierce that they chose to withdraw rather than continue fighting. The message this sent throughout the galaxy would change everything. Humanity had taught the monsters to be afraid. The war against the Devourers had raged for months, tearing through the stars like a storm. But everything changed when the Kithara came back. Their bioelectric warriors, pulsing with energy, fought side by side with Colonel Jiang Minkyung's ground forces on Titan's icy plains. The sight was unreal, human soldiers in heavy armor, their rifles blazing, next to Kithara fighters whose bodies crackled with lightning. Together they pushed back the Devourer's clawing drones, turning the frozen ground red with victory. Word of the battle spread, and it lit a spark. Other species, who'd been hiding or hesitating, started to join. The Zephyrians, with their strange ability to phase shift, slipped weapons right into the heart of enemy ships, making them explode from the inside. The Crystalline Collective, a race of glowing, gem-like beings, shared their unbreakable communication tech, letting allied forces talk without fear of the Devourers listening in. For the first time, the galaxy wasn't just running from the enemy. It was fighting back with humans leading the charge. At the edge of the spiral arm, the final battle loomed. Admiral Kang Su-jin stood on the bridge of her flagship, her eyes locked on the stars. The Devourer hive mind, a writhing mass of ships that thought as one, was closing in. She grabbed the comms, her voice steady but fierce. "This is Admiral Kang Su-jin to all allied fleets," she said, her words carrying to every ship. "Human, Kithara, Zephyrian, and more. We don't run from monsters. We teach them to run from us." The crews cheered, their voices echoing across the fleet. It wasn't just a battle cry, it was a promise. The fight lasted 3 days. Human tactics, sharp and fearless, were the backbone of the alliance. Colonel Jiang's ground teams on nearby moons held the line, drawing the Devourers into traps. Zephyrian stealth ships darted through the chaos, planting bombs where the enemy least expected. The Crystalline Collective's comms kept everyone in sync, their signals cutting through the void like a blade. And at the center, Admiral Kang's fleet hammered the hive mind's core, human ships weaving through enemy fire with a courage that made their allies stand taller. On the 3rd day, the tide turned. Captain Yu Sung-min, commanding a battered destroyer, spotted a weak point in the hive mind's flagship, a pulsing core that linked the Devourer ships. "All ships, focus fire," he shouted, his voice hoarse but unbreakable. The Allied fleet poured everything they had into that one spot. Kithara warriors sent arcs of electricity to overload the enemy's shields. Zephyrians phased missiles straight into the core. Human gunners, sweat dripping down their faces, fired until their cannons glowed red. When the core exploded, the hive mind shattered. The Devourer ships went silent, drifting like empty shells. Captain Yu grabbed the comms, his hands shaking, with exhaustion and pride. "The hunt is over," he said, his voice carrying across the galaxy. "The galaxy remembers how to fight." Cheers erupted, not just on the ships but on planets and stations light years away. The words spread, repeated in markets, schools, and council halls. Humans, once seen as small and weak, had shown the stars what they could do. In the quiet, after the battle, the galaxy changed. Leaders from a dozen species met on a neutral station, its halls glowing with soft light. They talked about what came next. The Devourers were gone, but the lesson lingered. Together they were unstoppable. That's when the Galactic Defense Corps was born. Its motto, written first in Korean and then translated into every language, was simple. "We stand, we fight, we win." It wasn't just words, it was a vow, carved into the heart of every member. Back on human worlds, people celebrated. On Titan, Colonel Jiang walked through a rebuilt outpost, kids running up to her, with drawings of the battle. One boy, barely 8, handed her a picture of a Kithara warrior and a human soldier standing together. "That's you," he said, pointing at the human. Jiang smiled, ruffling his hair. "And that's you someday," she said, pointing at The drawing. The kid grinned, dreaming of the stars. On other planets, the story grew. A Zephyrian elder told her people how human courage had inspired them to fight again. A crystalline collective leader hummed a song about the battle, its notes echoing through their crystal cities. Even species who hadn't fought sent messages, asking to join the Corps. "If humans can stand against the Devourers," one said, "we want to stand with you." The Galactic Defense Corps grew fast. Human trainers taught tactics in packed halls, their voices mixing with the hum of alien tech. Kithara warriors sparred with human recruits, laughing as they learned each other's moves. Zephyrians shared their phase-shifting tricks, while humans showed them how to improvise under pressure. The Corps wasn't just an army, it was a family, built on trust. One night, Admiral Kang stood on her ship's deck, staring at the stars. Captain Yu joined her, his uniform still stained from the battle. "We did it," he said quietly. "We showed them." Kang nodded, her eyes soft but proud. "We didn't just win a war," she said. "We showed the galaxy what it means to stand together." They looked out at the endless stars, knowing more challenges would come, but for now the galaxy was theirs. On a small human colony, two teens sat on a hill, watching ships streak across the sky. "Think we'll ever join the Corps?" one asked, tossing a stone. The other grinned, her eyes bright. "We will, and we'll make the monsters run." They laughed, their voices carrying into the night. The stars seemed closer, brighter, full of hope. The story of the Galactic Defense Corps wasn't just about a war. It was about humans showing the galaxy how to fight for something bigger, each other. It was about standing tall, no matter the odds, and teaching the stars that together they could win anything. End of story.